Hey guys, Matty here from DCLblogger.com. Wanted to go through a not just a case study, but wanted to go through the power of negotiating, and why you should negotiate before committing to purchasing NFTs. This is where the real value lies, and if you're going to be a trader, you have to kind of negotiate and talk to people and see if you can get the price lower, right? Because the whole concept of trading and buying and selling is that you want to buy it cheap and you want to sell it more expensive. So the cheaper you buy, the more expensive you sell it, the higher that margin is, the more money you're going to make. So my whole concept of my power back when Decentraland was, a really good grant for buying and selling large estates or large portfolios was my negotiating technique. And I didn't know whether or not to release this just because it's it's really what made me a good amount of money. And it's kind of the secret to how I did things. But anyway, it's very difficult to replicate just because it kind of requires a lot of patience and a full-time commitment to have this thing going on. So back then I used to keep a spreadsheet of all the leads that used to come through. You can see that in land trading channel in the Decentraland Discord, you would notice people post their lands for sale. It's not as frequent anymore just because a lot of people are not really selling their land. They're holding it to build things on them. But back then, a lot of people were buying and selling quite frequently because there was a lot of first generation investors that had spent 1,000 mana to buy their land. They're happy to sell it for 3,000 to 5,000, sometimes 7,000, 8,000 mana. And there's a lot of people coming in to buy it, right? But nowadays there's not that many that post, but there is still every now and then see this guy has pasted his land for sale. So instead of going here and simply buying it for 15,500 mana, every time I'd see a land for sale, I'd message the person and say, hey, would you sell it for 11,000 mana or 10,000 mana or a price point below what the market demands at the moment? So in this case, JJ, who was a really good kind of negotiator in between or mediator for me, used to work with the Chinese community and bring to me deals and kind of get a cut in between, help me negotiate with them. He proposed a deal to me saying 15 lands for 400,000 mana. Are you interested? So at 400,000 mana, I think the price there he was asking for was 26,000 mana a piece. This was back in October, I believe. This was back in October 2018. So this was September, October. Yeah, this was at a point where the market was pretty much booming and lands in between districts were worth about 25,000 mana, right? But at 26,000 mana, there's really not that much money to be made for me for a flip. So if I bought it at 26,000, that means I have to sell it for 30,000 to get a 4,000 mana profit in between. And I like to invest my money in places where the flip potential is big, right? So for me, there was a bit of negotiating to do. So I'd say, I'll pass on this one. I can do 200,000 mana for this, where he says he won't accept it. I offer 250,000 for all 17. He says no, I'll wait another day. He gives me another offer. So you can see the date, September 21st, where he came to me first on September 20th, September 19th. I said no. And then I come up a little bit more. He comes to me saying he just rechecked, saying that he can accept 320,000 mana. So that way I know that he can come down. Now going down 80,000 mana from his no budge price was actually a big deal. So for me, there's a bit of negotiating there to be done. So yeah, okay, I'll come up to 275,000 mana. I have the money on the table. He checks. He says he can sell it 270 and he'll take the 5,000 as a cut. Are you okay? Let's do it. So I get the land for 270,000, which is a really big saving. It's about a 30% markdown from the initial thing, right? And that's basically my profit margin. If I buy it for 270,000 mana or 275,000 mana, I go ahead with the purchase. And back then it was a lot of manual transfers because we didn't have OpenSea that allowed. We had OpenSea back then, but it didn't allow private trading where you could lock the buy address or anything like that. So back then it was a lot of me sending the money first, and that's what happened here. You can see here, these are my transactions out straight into the wallet. I sent 90,000 mana first. He sent about 3 to 4 lands. I sent another 90,000 mana. He sent another 3 to 4 lands. I kept going until the full deal was done. And I was willing to take this risk because my mentality was, if I get scammed 1 out of 5 deals, I'll still make money on the 4 big deals that I do. And the reality was that I never ever got scammed once, just because the way I did it was always just testing with a small amount first. So for example, I'll send across 5 to 10,000 mana, see if he sends across one land, and then I'd go the next stage and kind of do it in that sense. But if I was dealing with people that I had trusted before, for example JJ, I'd worked with quite a lot of times before, I'd be more open to this. But anyway, the deal happened, spent 270,000 mana or 275,000 mana. So that worked out to be 15 lands at 275,000, a little bit under 20,000. I'd say 18,000 mana I'll land. I think the next day I listed it for 39,000 for the district connection and 33,000 for the other 12. So we had, I listed this for 39, and then 33s for all this. And back then you couldn't combine land to make estates. You had to buy them individually. So I waited about a week with no bites or interest, another week of this, and I would have lowered it to 27,000 each. But around 2 days ago, back then, I sold them all. So this was in October 2018, when the market was going crazy, and I knew there was really big investors around. Suddenly one investor bites, he buys all of them, and I sell the whole lot for 513,000 mana, 238,000 mana profit, 80 ETH in profit at that moment. And for me, that's a pretty good deal. And those are the types of deals I looked for. For me, negotiating was a big factor in making money, because it gives me a margin to work with. Okay, if I didn't sell it for 33,000, I'd have to lower it to 25. And if I bought it for 26,000 mana a piece and I'm selling it for 27, 28, I don't ever want to struggle to sell land at a profit or a loss, right? I don't ever want to sell at a loss. And for me, it's only valuable because I know the value that as a buyer of large assets, when you're asset owner, if you're an investor in the NFT business and you have 50 to 80 to 100 Ethereum that you want to get rid of, it's hard to find a buyer that's got that 100 Ethereum to spend that money. So for someone back then that had the 270,000 mana ready to go to buy the 15 lands, it's beneficial for the person selling because suddenly he can just get rid of the land and do whatever he needs to do. And for me, it's beneficial, and I have that power, that buy power, just because I'm a bigger buyer of land. Back then I had 500,000 liquid mana or maybe 1 million mana ready to spend, and there wasn't many people with that kind of money to spend if they wanted to be a seller to kind of exit or sell their portfolio. So that was a really cool trading ground for me, and it still is. It just doesn't come as frequently as it did before. And that's it. That's how it worked, the negotiation. This is just one of many negotiations and deals that I've done. I've literally done over 50, maybe 100 deals over the counter, and all of them have been negotiating. I rarely buy anything off the market. Only these days, very rarely do I do that. Back then, it was all just through negotiating. There was one Telegram chat that I had, one deal that took me about 8 months or maybe 9 months to close. The guy wanted 2 million mana. I had to keep, asking him, like every 3 months I'd contact him, he'd keep lowering the price. And then one day I realized he lowered it to 800,000, then 600,000. Then I offered him 420,000 and he sold it. Because that day he needed it sold, 8 months later from the point of the first contact. So some of these, the way you got to do them is have a big spreadsheet with a bunch of leads and contact them every now and then until the point where they're serious in selling and you can negotiate hard. So that was, here's one example of many, and I hope you learned something about negotiating. And it's going to be a really big thing, and it's one of the biggest benefits of NFT investing is the fact that unlike just normal cryptocurrency trading where you're just buying and selling off an exchange, you actually have the ability to talk to someone and negotiate prices. And that's why trading is just so exciting.